I will build a car for the great multitude. It will be large enough for the family, but small enough for the individual to run and care for. It will be constructed of the best materials, by the best men to be hired, after the simplest designs that modern engineering can devise. But it will be low in price, that no man making a good salary will be unable to own one and enjoy with his family the blessing of hours of pleasure in God's great open spaces. Henry Ford. This is the story of how Henry Ford not only created the world's most influential automobile of the 20th century, but also revolutionized society, labor, and transportation forever. Chapter 1: The Revolution. In a time when the only reliable sources of transportation were horse carriages and steam engine trains, automobiles were seen as a toy for the rich or even an example of failure in innovation. Cars were seen as useless pieces of junk, a nuisance as they kicked dust everywhere, or even labeled a tyrant as they took up space where pedestrians used to be able to roam freely. But a man named Henry Ford changed that. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced a car that would permanently change the United States. Before the Model T, automobiles were expensive, rare, and mostly owned by the wealthy. The Ford Model T revolutionized transportation by making cars affordable for ordinary people, sparked strong reactions across society and industry, and led to reforms that reshaped American life in the 20th century. When the Model T was first introduced in October 1908, its starting price was about $850. While that may still sound expensive, it was significantly cheaper than many other automobiles of the time. Henry Ford famously declared, "I will build a car for the great multitude." His goal was to build an affordable, everyday method of transportation for the general public, not a luxury item. While this new accessibility revolutionized transportation, another massive revolution was the Ford assembly line. In 1913, Ford introduced the moving assembly line at his Highland Park plant. Instead of skilled workers building an entire car, each worker completed a single repeated task. This dramatically increased efficiency. Assembly time for the Model T dropped from over 12 hours to about 90 minutes. Because production became faster and cheaper, Ford lowered the price of the Model T repeatedly. By 1920, the price had fallen to less than $300. Millions of Americans who had never imagined owning a car can now afford one. Chapter 2: Labor Reforms. Around 1914, demand for the Model T had skyrocketed, and production at the Ford Motor Company was running at full speed. To keep up, factories relied on the moving assembly line, where workers repeated the same task all day. So Henry Ford made a decision that shocked the industrial world. In 1914, he announced the $5 workday and shortened the workday to 8 hours. At a time when most factory workers earned far less, newspapers across the country reported on the decision as radical. Thousands of men lined up outside Ford factories hoping to be hired. The policy was not just generous. Assembly line work caused high worker turnover, and Ford needed to keep experienced workers on the job. Higher wages reduced quitting and increased productivity. This change influenced labor reform beyond Ford's factories. Other companies began to reconsider wages and hours to compete for workers. The Model T revolutionized not only transportation, but also how industrial labor was organized in the United States. Chapter 3: The Reaction. The Model T didn't just change production or labor, it changed everyday life, and people were soon to notice. In cities, roads became crowded with cars on top of already existing horses and pedestrians. Traffic hazards became a real problem. City people saw the car not just as a menace to life and limb, but also as an aggressor upon their time-honored rights to city streets. The pedestrian, explained a Brooklyn man, as an American citizen, naturally resents any intrusion upon his prior constitutional rights, custom, and the Anglo-American legal tradition confirmed by the pedestrians. An alienable right to the street, expresses Peter Norton on the MIT Press. This old man from Brooklyn wasn't alone in feeling that way. A judge said the streets of Chicago belong to the city, not the automobiles. The general people were not the only people who reacted. As adoption of motor vehicles and automobiles increased, lawmakers and politicians were forced to react with new laws and systematic changes. The reaction to the assembly line was mixed. On one hand, you had good wages, faster production, and efficiency, but for many workers, it was grueling. One 1914 letter written by the wife of an assembly line worker pleads with Henry Ford to investigate conditions in your factory. She describes exhausted men, foremen who slave drive the workers, and basic needs being ignored. No proper breaks, no lockers, even stolen lunches. Although the initial complaints, she adds, That $5 a day is a blessing, a bigger one that you know, and oh, they earn it. Showing truly mixed feelings from the people that experience the positive and negative consequences firsthand. Chapter 4: Lasting Effects. The impact of the Ford Model T didn't end when the last car rolled off the assembly line in 1927. Its influence extended far beyond the factory, shaping American life in ways that are still visible today. The car transformed how people lived and moved. Suburbs expanded as families realized they could live farther from cities while still traveling easily to work or school. Roads once built for horses were paved and widened, and governments invested in highways, traffic signs, and safety regulations. The Model T also left a lasting mark on industry and labor. The assembly line perfected at Ford's Highland Park plant became a model for factories across the country. Mass production became the standard for American industry, making goods more affordable and accessible. Ford's bold decision to pay higher wages influenced labor practices beyond its own company, sparking conversations about fair pay, working hours, and relation between employers and employees. These changes helped lay the foundation for labor reform that would continue for decades. Culturally, the Model T changed how Americans thought about mobility and freedom. The idea of owning a car was no longer a luxury for the wealthy, it was a tool that gave ordinary people independence, the ability to explore, and access to new opportunities. Even today, the Model T's legacy is clear. It demonstrated how innovation combined with bold business decisions could change an entire society. It demonstrates efficiency, labor, and accessibility, showing that technology interacts with culture, economics, and everyday life. In the end, the Model T was more than a car. It was a revolution on wheels. It sparked reactions, some welcoming, some critical, and it drove reforms that reshaped work, roads, and routines. Its story is a reminder that one invention can ripple through an entire society, leaving marks that last long after the engine stopped running.